And I'm sorry this blustery day. I appreciate everyone's here. I learned a new phrase today, wind whipped rain. That's not a pretty thing that we're experiencing. I'm Charlie Sully, Chair of the CMC, and this is the Blue Line Extension Corridor Management Committee. First, I want to acknowledge a couple of new members. Connie Senjan, who is the Metro District Engineer for MnDOT, is a new member of the CMC. Also, Mayor Rosalind Hartman. Is Rosalind here? No, she is new. No, she is new to the CMC. And then also Charles Rucker is the alternate for Meg Forney from the Minneapolis Park Board. Good to see you. Welcome.
Thank you.
Why don't we just go around the room quickly, introduce ourselves. I'll start. Charlie Zelli, Chair.
Irene Fernando, Hennepin County Board.
Jeremiah Ellison, City of Minneapolis.
Aaron Wagner, City of Robbinsdale.
Nick Thompson for alternate for general manager for Metro Transit.
Commissioner Charles Rucker, Park Board.
Brett Buckner, CAC member.
Ricardo Perez with Blue Line Coalition.
Carla Redondo with Blue Line Coalition. Therese Kaiser, City of Crystal.
Jim Adams, Mayor of Crystal.
Anjali Cameron, Met Council.
Suzanne Sabatka, I'm the alternate for Mayor Fry, City of Minneapolis.
Connie Saibjam with MnDOT Metro District.
Rich Neto Parker, alternate for Commissioner Jeff Lendy.
Reva Chambliss, Vice Chair Met Council and Council Member representing District 2.
And thank you, Vishna, for filling in. Just a couple of housekeeping items. I say this every meeting. These mics are alive. They are live. In other words, they're picking up everything. We are broadcasting. This is public, and it's being recorded. So all meetings, presentations will be available on the website, which is Blue Line EXT. That's one word, bluelineext.org. And if you are watching in the public digitally, and you'd like to make comments, please feel welcome to submit those to Nkongo Sigulo. You can see his email address on the screen. Also, today, we're actually kind of excited to get more updates. We've been talking about safety and security for some time, so I know we're going to hear from Chief Morales here in a minute. But first, we've had a few people who've signed up to give public comments. So we've offered that in the past. Why don't we have the public testimony now? We have 3 people who've signed up in advance. I don't think we've got any additional commenters, no. So we really limit these, but we feel it's important to get public comment at this public meeting. I'd like to limit them to 3 minutes each. So is Matt Bruns here? Welcome, Matt. You can sit right where it says guest speaker. Perfect.
Mr. Chair and committee members, the residents of 918 Lofts are steadfast in our opposition to routing light rail through the narrow North 10th Avenue corridor. We've seen how this type of work can be detrimental to local residents. These concerns were validated when we learned that Hennepin County reduced the values of homes along the Southwest Light Rail. The residents of 918 Lofts simply cannot afford to lose our hard-earned savings because of another transit project. In the packet you received, you will see that in addition to protecting our homes, there are an abundance of benefits to placing light rail along I-94. The most recent route modification report from April of 2022 even noted that the North 10th Avenue route should no longer be considered as it is not conducive to light rail. This is only supported by the loss of dedicated bike lanes and having bikes forced to share this transitway with emergency vehicles, all while trains are cruising by. I think we deserve a safer solution. The current proposal is certainly not the most efficient. You can see that the 10-minute walk shed of the Target Field Station and proposed Washington Avenue Station have significant overlap. These residents and businesses are already well served by that Target Field Station, and I am one of them. If the proposed station is moved to the I-94 alignment, the overlap is reduced, but still not optimal. However, let's keep the I-94 alignment and move the station to an extremely visible location just a block farther north on Washington. This would provide easy access to areas that are under the current plan would not be well served. As we've seen, light rail has the ability to activate areas and promote diverse development. If you've ever driven the stretch of North Washington or the side streets, you already know how desolate and ripe for transformation it is. Just in the last few months, a business development was announced for the former BJ's Liquor Lounge property at the corner of Washington and Broadway. We should be capitalizing on these types of changes and be creating infrastructure that can serve businesses and residents who want to move into our neighborhoods. You may have noticed that many of these documents came directly from previous Blue Line presentations. The research has already been completed, and it's evident that the I-94 alignment not only has reduced neighborhood impact, but it also serves more destinations and will promote the activation of an area that is just waiting. On another note, I would be remiss if I didn't mention that at $2.86 billion, the Southwest Light Rail has cost over $500 per Minnesota resident. The most recent $120 million overage could have purchased 388 average homes in Minneapolis. Light rail crime was up 25% in 2023, while ridership was still only 50% of pre-pandemic levels. While I do love taking the train, I have to question if extending it is truly best serves our communities and state, or should we be considering multiple bus rapid transit routes that more residents can benefit from sooner and at a lower cost? Thank you.
Thank you. Now I call on Andrea Young. Is Andrea here? Welcome.
Okay. Hello, everyone. My name is Andrea Young, and I am the community organizer for the Heritage Park Neighborhood Association. As this project moves forward with planning and construction of the Blue Line and into the anti-displacement phase, the Heritage Park neighborhood is left wondering what that means for them. For those of you who don't know, the Heritage Park neighborhood surrounds Olson Memorial Highway, the initial projected route for the Blue Line train, which continues to be a key part of our community. Residents were promised many things, from safer pedestrian walkways, sidewalks, and roadways, easy access to transportation, and better business and residential living opportunities. Once the route was changed, the Heritage Park community was left with nothing but uncertainty and broken promises. This repeated cycle of broken promises made to our neighborhood isn't new to the residents that live here, but that doesn't change the damage that it brings to the individuals that reside in Heritage Park. The opportunities the train could have brought to our neighborhood would have been game-changing, but now we will never know. Our community wants to be recognized during this phase of your project and all the way through after construction. We ask that you all remember Heritage Park when you begin creating alignments and stops for new routes. Maybe we can add a stop to still benefit our residents and businesses. Remember this community when you begin altering and constructing roadways and pedestrian crossings. Maybe there can be new roadways, crossings, and bridges to connect the project with our neighborhood. Remember Heritage Park when you plan for redevelopment and new opportunities to be put into other communities. Maybe we can get more than $100 million to solve these problems and change the course of history. And please remember the Heritage Park community whenever you hear another person speak about broken promises, because we deserve your recognition by our government when it fails to deliver on critical promises made to the people that live, work, and play in Heritage Park. There is still time to act, and we ask the city of Minneapolis to step up and start studying how you will be making us whole. We do have broken promises, but what we do want or need, and who do we need it from? Today we are asking the CMC, who are our city's mayors and commissioners. Thank you.
Thank you, Ms. Young. And now our third testifier is Mitchell Hansen. Welcome, Mitchell.
Thanks. Thanks for the opportunity to speak. I think she just covered it perfectly, though. So I think I'm actually good. So thank you.
The record will note that you agree with that test facts, right? Okay, thank you. That brings us to our agenda first item, which is the approval of the meeting summary from our meeting on December 14th that was sent out to all of you in advance. So if there's any edits, corrections, questions, now is the time. Otherwise, I'll entertain a motion and a second to approve.
I move approval.
Thank you, Mayor. Thank you. All those in favor say aye. Aye. Opposed? All right, those meetings are approved. And now we're going to have an update from our community and business advisory committees. And I'm not sure which CMC or C will go first, but go ahead.
Hi, Chair Zelli, members, my name is Brett Buckner. I'm here on behalf of the Community Advisory Committee. And we just met last night as our rhythm continues on. And again, fruitful conversation, our first meeting back for 2024. We generally hit the, got a project update from Deputy Project Director for the Blue Line Project, Shaheen, and forgive me for from Shaheen, yes, thank you. And it was great to see him and taking the reins from and moving the project forward from there. That was followed up by Director of Community Affairs from Sophia Guinness, describing not only the public safety conversation that will be followed up with during this conversation, but to talk about the Network Now project as well and how we're receiving information and how the system is actually working from there. And it was a very fruitful conversation to understand how we're starting to aggregate information and really starting to understand how we can actually work together, even starting to talk about projects such as the Metro Transit micro project that's taking place in North Minneapolis and how that can be a part of our transit solutions as well. Of course, the Congo gave us, as well as Kathy Gold, started to talk about anti-displacement and the work that is taking place from from that group that continues to work some magic and coming with new ideas to ensure that our communities are truly connected, vested, and truly supported. And as we're going through these remarkable changes, as described by our members from Harrison neighborhood as well. Heritage Park and as well, thank you. But we started to really get into the conversation of what the potential build will start to look like and the effects that will take place along West Broadway specifically, and how this affects Black and brown businesses along the corridor, where we start to have a deeper discussion about access and to really start to understand what that meant for communities and the businesses in real time. And I thought it was a fruitful conversation as relates to the members understanding new access points and reimagining how we can make sure that the businesses are lessened, their harm is lessened during the time as well. So we're really excited about that. We're getting ahead of the conversation and learning from the lessons of Southwest and Green and other places from there, so we can actually mitigate those challenges that have faced a lot of businesses in the past. Other than that, it was good to see everybody. We hadn't seen everybody in about 3 months. And we look forward to our next meeting in March 7th, something like that. But in the first week of March, we'll reconvene.
Great. Hey, thank you.
Thank you.
Any questions from the panel, committee? No. And is there any other reports from the Business Coalition? No. All right. Thanks. Thanks so much. Now, we're going to hear now from on our safety and security initiative, but I want to give Councilmember Ellison just a minute because we're ahead of schedule, and I know you have to leave. So
Yeah, I do have to leave a little bit early, and I probably could save my comments for another time, but I'll keep it short. I'll keep it really short. I probably sound like a broken record, but I do want to just. I know we're not going to be talking about anti-displacement quite today, but it is one of the major topics that I think is surrounding this project. And so just wanted to, talk about how the new work group is kind of underway. I think its first iteration, I wanted to make sure that it was, we all wanted to make sure that it was really community-led. That will continue to be the case. But I know that several of us are being invited to come to those meetings, increasingly so. And so I was there. I know a few of us were also there. And I just wanted to encourage us, I know that I as community members, continue to lend their voice to this project, talk about their hesitance, their level of buy-in. I think one thing that remains consistent, at least in the feedback that I get, is that folks really want to see the anti-displacement work running concurrent with the alignment, the project, the build. And I think that I just want to keep elevating that because I think it's really important as we come up on these conversations around, whether it's municipal consent or any of these conversations, more community meetings that I know Nakongo is going to be working on as well. I think that we're going to continue to be met with a louder and louder sort of drumbeat of like, okay, this is great. We're having the discussion. We have the information. We have some academics at the front of the room who understand this issue, but who's paying for what, when, and to what end, right? I think those are going to start to really be the questions that folks want to know. And so just want to keep encouraging us to and I'm holding myself accountable to this isn't a finger wagging. This is sort of like a call in up for all of us to really understand, what is our strategy, right? What is our roadmap in the same way that we can lay it down for our residents where the train's going to go and, have, further meetings about a new bridge or new alignment. I think we also need to be talking about not only what strategies we think are important, but what we think they're going to cost and how we think we are going to pay for them. I think that's something that we really, community, at least as from my vantage point, still has a certain level of anxiety about whether these things are really going to run concurrent or whether that the route alignment and construction and municipal consent are going to start to outpace anti-displacement conversations, especially in detail. So just wanted to offer that. I feel a little bit like a broken record sometimes, but I just wanted to make that before we wrapped up. But I'm excited about the update today. I'll still stay for as long as I'm able to, and obviously in future meetings I'm usually here the whole time. So thank you for the moment.
And thank you, Councilmember. And your voice is not only important, but I appreciate you're not a broken record. We need to keep this in front. And I think if I had to summarize it, let's make it real. This isn't just an idea, how we're going to make this happen. So thank you for that.
Yeah, thank you.
So we are going to hear from Chief Morales. I have to say safety and security is something that we've all been thinking about as we build new transit ways, but also as we think about the world we're living in now and the challenges we have. And I really appreciate the chief being with us because you're a lot of places and you've been here not quite a year, but it's coming right up to a year. We've already seen a difference. I have to say, having come from a presentation last night, which was a quarterly update before the full Met Council, we're getting deep into more than just numbers, but actual stories and what we're experiencing, what progress we're making. This isn't just a transit issue, but is one that transit is acutely affected by. I also, it's not lost on me, today's Star Tribune editorial. If I would give anybody advice and read the editorial, start with the last paragraph and then go back to the beginning. The last paragraph says, we appreciate what the Met Transit staff, the Met Transit police and staff are doing because they are making progress. They just got to stay on it. So, which I wholeheartedly think we are. So, Chief, welcome, and we look forward to hearing what you have to say.
Good afternoon, members. Thank you for the opportunity for having me here to present the importance of the expansion of the Blue Line extension. So, my vision, as the chair stated, I came approximately 11 months ago. I'm quickly approaching my first year anniversary here. And I felt that we understood the challenges here from a larger perspective, not only including transit. But as we recover from the COVID pandemic, I want us to get back to using and utilizing our imagination and realizing that transit is not only an opportunity, but more importantly, a way to give people a chance to see things that they ordinarily wouldn't see. It breaks down invisible barriers that we often do not want to discuss. So here in the police department, we understand the challenge that the police officers face and the Metro Transit employees face as well. So we're changing our vision, and that's mission first, people always. Because we understand today, as we recover from COVID, the challenges that we face in society, but we also have to recognize the people that do these jobs on a daily basis. And I'm committed to our staff by building a strong culture and prioritizing our overall well-being each and every member in the MTPD. We're committed to training and education by giving everyone the opportunity to grow with the department. Committed to our community by investing in innovative solutions and building strengthening partnerships to address larger societal issues together. Committed to trust and integrity through open communication and operating with transparency. And committed to technology, continuously looking ahead to what's ahead while using the state-of-the-art equipment and data to guide our methods. And my personal statement here, which is I am committed to leading Metro Transit Police Department into the brightest chapter yet by building a culture that is well respected throughout Minnesota and beyond. That culture is one that encourages collaboration, promotes innovation, and proactively addresses emerging challenges with strategic solutions. A culture where the professional and personal growth and well-being of each and every member of the MTPD is paramount to the overall success. At MTPD, we take pride in leading with integrity, empathy, and professionalism. These words have never been more important, especially under my time here at the Metro Transit Police Department. When we talk about the accomplishment of the men and women in the Metro Transit Police Department, the key takeaways are that overall crime for the year 2023 was down 25%. Top 7, these are violent crimes, murders, robberies, rapes, burglaries, grand larcenies. We were down 13%. How were we able to accomplish this? Officer-initiated calls were up 24%. What does that mean? That means that our officers were taking a proactive position. I re-engineered on how they were doing their jobs. No longer would they stay in their cars and respond to calls for service. They were now, and they are now instructed, in between calls, they get a geographical area of employment, 3 to 4 stops along their route. They get out in between calls for service. They get onto the light rail. In between those stops, they step out into the platform. They make eye contact with the passenger, so there's a positive encounter. Then they step back onto the line, get back to their car, and resume patrol. Customer LRT complaints were down 44%. Now, a great contributor of that is the fact that you have that human presence on the line. And we know the societal challenges that we face on a daily basis. But what we also know is that when people see a friendly face, someone who comforts them, knowing that if there is an issue, there's someone to address them, goes a long way. And that's how we've been successful. When we look at quarter 1 to quarter 4 dispatch calls, you'll see quarter 1 to quarter 2, and that was the first 3 months of the year, we were up 10%. This was calls generated by 9/11. Quarter 2 to quarter 3, we were up 6%. Quarter 3 to quarter 4, because of our proactive policing, we were down 34%. When you take the whole year, quarter 1 to quarter 4, we were down 24%, a total of 24%. And this is exactly what I'm talking about. The data here from quarter 1 to quarter 4, officer-initiated calls. This is proactive policing. These are our police officers getting out of their cars, riding the system, and calling out. Quarter 1 to quarter 2, that was up 1%. It went down quarter 2 to quarter 3. It increased greatly to 53%, quarter 3 to quarter 4. When you look at the whole year together, we were up in proactive policing initiated calls, 23%. Staffing continues to be an issue. And we just released 2 recruitment videos this year, one in-state and one out-of-state for the surrounding states, to get young individuals here. But as I stated yesterday at the council, what we need is our community activists, we need our politicians, and everyone around us to support the professional law enforcement. Regardless of how you may feel about public safety, it is, as Maslow's theory, the first layer of public safety is security. We secure and support one another, but we can't do that with our public servants. And make no mistake about it, police officers are public servants and we serve our communities. But if we continuously villainize this profession, young individuals will not want to be a superhero. And I consider my police officers superheroes because when they don on this uniform, they are the heroes that save people's lives. When they take them off, they're a family person that goes right back within the shadows of society. Part-time officers, we have 33 out of 80. Community service officers, 13 out of 70. And our support services, 29 out of 34. To help promote this, we have started a non-traditional community service officer pathways program. Prior to this, our traditional community service officer pathways program included individuals that were already enrolled in college. This new program is for people that aren't enrolled in college, but we have a bridge course. We give them 4 college credits, 4 college courses, earning up to 12 college credits. Once we roll them over into the conventional community service officer program, they will be eligible up to $18,000 tuition reimbursement. And we want every young individual or every individual who's interested in law enforcement to consider this as a possible viable solution to making a difference within your communities. As I stated, we just recently launched our 2 videos, but more importantly, we've began wrapping trains, buses, transit centers, as well as kiosks and digital signage with faces saying, "We want you to be the difference you want to see." And we've targeted the videos in and out of state, as I stated. As of February 5th, we launched 3 social media platforms, Facebook and Instagram. Our address there is Metro Transit PD. Please follow us if you're on social media, Metro Transit PD on Facebook and Instagram. And on Twitter, X, formerly known as Twitter, we're at MTPDMN. Once again, that's X, formerly known as Twitter, at MTPDMN. With that, if there are any questions, I'll be willing to answer.
Any questions for Chief? Go ahead, Ricardo.
Thank you. Thank you so much for your information. And we're with Blue Line Coalition. We have organizations that serve underrepresented communities across the corridor. And sorry, we thought about, can you hear that? That's weird. Oh, there we go. Public safety is a concern from Brooklyn Park all the way to North Minneapolis with the organizations that we're working with. So I do appreciate you sharing this information so we can spread the word about the numbers. We do wanted to ask, we know that last year Metro Transit ran a pilot program where it gave free rides for community members on the route 62 and 32, or 16 and 32, if I'm not mistaken. And we see some positive things coming out of that pilot, like increase of ridership, which is something that we want to see happening in Blue Line Extension. And I'm assuming, and I don't know if the number of people getting tickets, I'm assuming also dropped. So you mentioned looking for innovative solutions. I'm wondering if you all are looking at this free fare pilot program to kind of like apply some of those lessons to the ongoing public safety work that you all are doing. So thank you. Yeah.
Thank you for the question. Yes, we're currently in the process of evaluating routes 32 and 62 on free pilot program. As far as policy and expanding that would come from the legislative branch and the Met Council to consider the policies for the agencies, but we're definitely evaluating what the outcomes of the current operations are. So thank you for that.
Thank you.
I might ask Nick, maybe you may hear representing Met Transit more about that pilot program.
So that was outcome of the legislature, and they asked us to pick 2 routes and study it for 18 months. And so that'll go through the end of this calendar year. And we have a comprehensive study underway paralleling to see, what does it happen for ridership? Is it more reliable, faster? What are the safety implications, pro or con? And so by the end of the year, we'll be able to have a really full analysis of that we'll present back to the legislature, and obviously we can present that back to this group. So far, we've definitely seen ridership increase. But I think the study's still underway on the full impact of that. So we are studying on those 2 routes. And the intent was to see what would happen and see everything and see if we should apply that on other parts of the system at the end of that study. So this full year, and then we'll have some better results.
And maybe some of the safety impacts might also be part of that study.
That is part of it.
Thank you, because we thought about like free rides for community members who have lived in these neighborhoods historically. It's without a doubt for us like a benefit that looks like anti-displacement. So it seems like a good way of connecting the efforts. But no, thank you for sharing as well. For your question.
I have a follow-up.
Welcome, Commissioner Green.
Hi, sorry.
Commissioner Fernando.
Yes. Thank you, Chief, for the summary. And my follow-up, I think, might connect a little bit to the discussion around free fares. But first, it would be great to have some follow-up. I like the data to get a sense of magnitude, right? So 3,000 calls for service. Is this the same as the complaints from the previous slide, or is this a different?
So there are two versions of, and it's the same slide. It should have been on one slide, but that's the way we have presented it so that we can emphasize the difference between 911 dispatch calls as opposed to the proactive policing. I wanted
Got
to
it.
break out the work that our police officers were initiating.
I understand. Okay, great. Well, yeah, so in this first chart, we can see a little bit of order of magnitude with 3,000. So on slide where it says Q1 to Q4 2023 data takeaways, this overall crime down 25%, top 7 down 13%. More info on this would just be very helpful as we're proceeding with the conversation. How is that defined? And I think this is what it's kind of what Ricardo was saying. If we see that there are fewer officer interactions, vibes today. Sorry. That was funny.
The speaker's still working.
I've never seen that happen
I've
before,
never seen
yeah.
that.
Need to move.
If we're seeing fewer calls from the routes because there's more ridership or because maybe a lot of the complaints are coming from fare enforcement, that's just interesting data for us to take in and expand. Of course, this was a short presentation, but expanding upon those first bullets, how is crime defined versus the top 7? You had mentioned some of the examples of the top 7. So obviously those are at a materially different level. So this is not a rush. Obviously there's more piloting to occur, but that would be very important information for not just this group, just for those who are, of course, implementing transit operations. So I wanted to commend you on the data that's been provided and share a little bit as to why additional data would be beneficial for this table. Thank you.
Thank you.
Yeah, and I just want to follow up. Thank you for raising that. I think, and we've certainly been at the Met Council having this, not frustration, but conversation, that sometimes a headline might say, crime is up 32%, but the reality is, it's not actually a crime. It's reports of crime that are more increasingly officer-initiated. So it might actually come more from our enforcement presence. Our visibility and our reporting is increasing because we're actually having much more human presence than we did 2 years ago. So
Right.
some of that needs to be kind of peeled back to understand what is truly happening. And we know we need even more human presence, but even the increases we've had are resulting in more reports, which is not necessarily a bad thing. It means we're actually.
Right. Well, and I think that's why just what is the data telling us would be beneficial. I mean, if we know X% of people are in need of medical access, actually, or housing access, or whatever it is, that will indicate for the people around this table, perhaps different recommendations in the future. So just knowing how you're already measuring it, and then of course comparing that to the free fare routes at some point will just be illuminating. So thanks for the presentation.
Thank you.
Rita.
Yeah, thanks for the presentation. I enjoyed having a more in-depth discussion at the council meeting yesterday. You talked about security being a big part of what is the solution and what we need to accomplish. And security is also being affected by perception. And those two are linked. And I'm not sure if there was a whole lot of discussion about, I don't recall a lot of discussion about this, but what we did talk about yesterday was that many of our customers are noticing a difference of the activities and the action steps that have been taken on the trains and our BRT. And to me, that signifies some progress and some things that we want to continue to do as you roll out your action plan. I also wanted to talk about how resolving and preventing crime is a community responsibility. And if we really want those numbers to go down, we want to form partnerships with other police entities as well as community service entities And we all, as residents, have a part to play in getting to the root cause of crimes and being a part of the solution.
Thank you. And I want to emphasize here to this group that I speak with Chief O'Hara, Chief Revering, Chief Bruley, and Chief Foley regularly on a monthly basis. We are beginning conversations. I'm beginning conversations with some of the chiefs as the blue line is considered to be extended. We are having conversations about how we're going to effectively collaborate to address any concerns or issues that may arise.
Thank you.
Councilman.
I just want to build off of Commissioner Fernando's question, and I think one of the things, I actually, if Chief Morales has a fault, is that sometimes his presentations can include too much data. And so that, not today, you did great. You always do great, don't worry. But it is something that I think, you know, when he outlined his values earlier in the presentation, it included a commitment to technology. And that is absolutely true. I think that data is being collected and analyzed on a number of different levels. And I think, you know, there's a lot more to dig in there. And that's something that I think, you know, he's presented in the past to other groups and, you know, the Regional Council of Mayors. You've had a number of different presentations where he's included you know, an excess of data on how they're looking at different strategies and being really responsive and being really smart and efficient about resources. So I think, you know, whatever questions you have, I think there's a lot of information there that is informing their strategies, and you're seeing the results of it now. So, yeah.
Thank you.
You're doing great.
Go ahead, Mayor.
So I want to thank you for the presentation. It's been, I've been here for 12 years, and we've talked about safety at a very high level for these 12 years. And there's two dynamics to safety: the physical safety around the train and what you deal with. It's nice to know what has been done. I'm going to be a little critical here. It would have been nice to know that it was being done earlier. I think this group has seen me talk about safety and base some votes off of safety. And we've now heard it twice within the last couple months. And so thank you for being here. Thank you for sharing that information. Keep it up. The word is not quite getting out yet. And I think that's a very important piece. You know, I've talked to some people in this group. You know, you make a change, it takes a very long time for the public to realize that a change has been made. If you're already experiencing some of that, that's fantastic. I have anecdotal evidence from a bunch of people in my organization. They're not telling me that they're seeing it yet. And I understand that dynamic. So I will be patient and I won't be too critical. But just know that we need to hear what's actually being done. And it's great that you've come here and expressed what your accomplishments. So thank you.
Thank you, sir. And
Thank
I
you,
just
Chair.
wanted to touch upon, I think that was part of the reason why we launched our 3 social media channels, so that we can start effectively communicating our message.
Great, thank you. Point well taken. Any other comments, questions? All right, well, you'll be hearing more, and stay tuned, because I think we're doing more, not just social media, but we're launching more, not advertising, but marketing of the work, you know, that's part of it. And actually, as ridership increases, it all goes hand in hand, you know, this is building confidence in a system, and that exudes better results.
As a matter of fact, if I may, before I leave, I've been riding the trains. I ride the trains regularly. And what I've noticed as ridership is increasing is that the passengers are now forming communities where they're returning back to the workplace and they're establishing relationships and they're feeling comfortable with the familiarity of the individuals they see on a constant basis, and they're forming their bonds, which is great, because that's what we need. We need communities who support one another as we continue to expand and return back to the workplace.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thanks, Chief. All right, we want to pivot to Sophia Guinness, who is no stranger to this group, who has been involved in so much engagement work, but now has an elevated work within Metro Transit. She's going to present about Network Now. I have to kind of say, as a background, we had an effort called Network Next, kind of the future of transit, and then we kind of get into COVID, and suddenly we realize, no, there's changes that are not way in the future. They're happening now. And it evolves, and it's going to continue to evolve as we build out this network, as we operate it. So Sophia is the director of our community affairs, and is going to give us a little bit of update. Again, as Mayor Adams points out, sometimes we didn't know that. So I want to make sure there's no secrets here, that the Blue Line is part of a larger system, and we're continuing to build out to many different places. Sophia.
Thank you, Chair, committee members. It has been a while since I've been in front of this group. And before I transition to Network Now, I do need to give a shout out to my colleague, Chief Morales. It has been an absolute pleasure to work with him over the last year to advance many safety and security initiatives. And as we work on communications and all the layers that get put on top, he's just been an amazing partner. And as he said, he's on the system a lot. I think there was an open invitation to join him possibly, but I can attest that some of his key moves, such as this, as he sees issues don't work as well when you're not in uniform. So just a FYI on that front, personal experience on that endeavor. So I'm here today to kind of connect, just like Chief is connecting a lot of the work that Metro Transit's doing to enhance safety and security, and really what it gets down to is the customer experience, the experience of our communities, the health of our system. I'm going to talk more about all the things that are on the street right now. So our network and how we are currently investing in our network and through the project that's called Network Now. I think this came up that many folks on the committee were just kind of like, hey, what's going on Metro Transit broadly? How does some of that work tie into the Blue Line? So I'm going to give a really kind of high level overview of what's cooking on that front from the Metro Transit side. And to give you, I think the chair kind of teed off why we're calling this project Network Now, and I'll just kind of go into another level of that, which is in 2022, we knew that we were emerging from the pandemic, but slowly, and we knew that the pandemic had radically changed our world. So the network that we ran in 2019 was potentially not the right solution for today. To give a little bit of context, Network Now, for me, is also an embodiment of the massive progress that has happened in terms of transit within the past year. When we launched this project in 2022, it was still about potentially a reduction. How would we handle workforce shortages? How would we handle not knowing the outcome of the 2023 legislative session and the funding we received, how we would handle that, right? So it was kind of twofold. Well, a year makes a whole bunch of difference. And so this project has, how it was initially mapped up to what it has evolved to and what I'm focused on today, is really how we invest our resources now to deliver the best transit system for our region, where Metro Transit serves. Part of how we can do that is 2023 saw very consistent operator hiring. So now we have better feet beneath us in terms of what services that we can kind of add over the near term. So what is Network Now? Kind of getting to the base of that. It's really outlining what Metro Transit's network should look like now, and prioritizing how that happens over the next handful of years, basically through 2027. And now that is before the Blue Line opens, and so Blue Line is kind of outside of the horizon of this project, but that doesn't mean that we are not thinking about you all already in our partners. Network Now is kind of analyzing what has changed and what we kind of want to re-envision. So that the project does include new or redesigned routes, frequency and span improvements to our existing network, kind of resolving discontinued service or facilities closures, Metroline implementation. I'll talk a little bit more about that when I go to kind of the foundations of the report itself. But between now and that time, we are opening a light rail line and about 5 BRT lines, so planning for those. There's also new things that weren't in the mix in 2019 that we would consider as part of our service package, such as microtransit possibilities. So this project is really going to loop all of that together and kind of set our course forward. So kind of next, I'm going to talk a little bit about where we have been so far with the project, kind of what we've put together, and then a little bit of where we're going and what to expect kind of next. And I'll just caveat, just kind of like Chief's presentation, there's tons of data available, and I'm just going to be kind of skimming the surface a little bit with that information. So kind of the first question, when you're thinking about how to regionally invest resources, how do you start that? And we did that by really developing our foundation. Because I'm the director of community affairs, my favorite leg of that foundation is obviously our stakeholders and our customers. And whether that's connecting directly with riders or all of our municipal and county partners. So shout out to all of your staff basically at this table for responding to the first phases of Network Now with feedback and desires that has all been put into the basis of this report. We've been out to some of your communities as well in various ways talking about Network Now. The council members that are at this table, the next couple slides may seem familiar to you all, but hopefully new to most of you in this group. So we also heard about 6,000 unique comments from our riders around the region, and we heard through a variety of means, both in person and virtually. So all that work basically helped us create what we're calling the Establishing the Foundation report. This report is available right now on Metro Transit's website at network/now. And basically, the outcome of the report, which I will show the principles in a second, but it created a set of principles which we are evaluating service changes and improvements against. The report itself also has various chapters. I'll just take very small highlights from all of them, basically outlining policy guidance. Metro networks are a form of policy guidance as well, right? It's our agency committing to various things. Network performance since 2019, changes, opportunities, and again, stakeholder feedback. So going first into policy, the Met Council does a whole set of planning, which Metro Transit also responds to. And so there's something that's called transit market areas. It helps us really identify where there's density or need or kind of what kind of service might be available. These maps are being updated and we've kind of coordinated with them. But the point I want to make with all of you, because we have many municipal partners in the room, is that your land use planning, whether you're thinking about the Blue Line extension or just your set of bus routes, makes a huge difference to the success of Metro Transit. So if you have kind of poor quality places to walk, really high speed, uncomfortable roads where all your transit is, lots of driveways and things that people have to navigate to get to their transit stop, it's not as conducive to ridership as nice places to walk, short crossing distances, mixes of use where you can go to multiple destinations, right? So all of you, whether talking about a capital project or just running the bus system, are partners in this process. I know I think about these things a lot. And in my role at Metro Transit, I like to say I'm the steward of experience in a lot of ways. And so when you think of your communities and you think about supporting transit service, think about the person and their experience. right? So if, often we hear talk about lifeline service, like, well, we need this because it's the only option for folks, right? Well, that person also deserves to wait for a bus in a place that is comfortable, right? Not on the hill of their neighbors on the frontage road, right? Or on a really thin sidewalk where cars spray things at them, right? We're constant partners in this. And so large transitway projects are often big opportunities to make large-scale investments in those changes to that experience. And that is part of why you talk about station area planning. You spend tons of time in your station areas thinking about those things. Other roadway projects that you all do are also part of that picture, as well as when you do major developments. And Metro Transit wants to know about them because part of what we are thinking about and trying to capture is where there is unmet demand and how we bring that into the picture. So what you all do gets reflected in big policy plans, which then helps us plan. And so, whether you're thinking about the Blue Line extension or you're thinking about basically all the bus routes that support some of the Blue Line expansion, really thinking about that as a holistic experience for your residents, super important. That's my pitch of the day. I think I already touched on this before I move a little bit into kind of performance and changes, but just also want to highlight that policy also shows up in our transit networks, what we've decided that we will be investing in. And so I'm just going to take switch gears just a little bit and talk a little bit about what has changed since 2019, kind of what we're seeing in terms of ridership, how that's kind of influencing our thinking right now, and kind of what's to come with some of that as well. So this slide gives you both kind of two ways of visualizing a little bit of the snapshots and changes of service that have occurred since 2019. So both suspended routes, and then that's shown kind of through the map of the region as well. And when you look at what's suspended, some of this, in Metro Transit's perspective, can be done differently, right? We don't necessarily want to bring everything back because there's new ways of potentially doing some of this. For example, ways to if you're starting your trip in a car as well, there's potentially ways that we can restructure how we provide express service to actually provide really good quality express service in the world that we are now. So that's just kind of a little bit of, I think this group is kind of asked about specific routes in their communities. Through 2019 or 2020, 2021, even into 2022. In addition to the eliminated routes, there was kind of touch points almost all through our system, spread pretty evenly, that reduced service, so how frequency the service came, or kind of how late or how long the service ran throughout the day. And I would like to note specifically, because I think this is good context, also as people are talking about ridership, the constraint really was our workforce challenges, and in some ways still is. When we think about ridership returning, you have to provide the service, right? If their demand is there and you don't respond to it, right, you don't see as much of an increase as maybe. So especially in 2022, Metro Transit was at a point where we wanted to really start putting more back into the world. What we were seeing justified that, but we had to catch up our workforce. And another presentation or another time is that there's many efforts right now in the way to really emphasize our workforce hiring as well. But kind of the hashtag star that I'm trying to make is in a sense that some of our ridership return is just that we aren't offering some services that we think people would use. This is just another way of showing kind of just regional boarding, so kind of number of trips by stop. I could have brought this map kind of through time, but it just kind of shows patterns and another way of kind of visualizing where people are going in the world today. So I'm going to jump into a little bit of kind of some highlights of the ridership trends a little bit. And these graphs are from our foundation's report and are being updated, but some of the same numbers and trends still persist in what we're seeing in 2023. And overall, ridership is up for Metro Transit year to year. And the graph on the left kind of shows, it's been updated now for 2023, but the pattern still persists. So the light gray is kind of your pre-pandemic peaks, right? So you had a big peak in the morning, you had a big peak in the evening. A lot of that was driven by your commuters. That, in a sense, has changed. Our busiest time of the day is 3 p.m., and that has kind of continued through time. We've seen a lot of growth in the midday and in our evening service. And this was true last year. It is true this year. Our service that provides this all day, that is frequent, that allows for people to take multiple trips, was the most resilient through the pandemic and continues to be strong over time. So when you think of something like the Blue Line extension and the type of service that it's providing, how that has responded other places in the region match up fairly well. It also gives us an indication of how, when we think of putting resources back onto our system, where we need to target some of those as well. The graph on the right, I always want to say left, but the graph on the right is a snapshot of the commuter express market. And if I would have brought this graph with just more of our local bus service, this change would be very flat. So if you look at just our commuter express, there's not as much ridership on Mondays and Fridays, overall Tuesdays and Thursdays. But if you have taken this and looked at our overall system, we're seeing more consistent ridership kind of over time. So it starts to peel back the picture of like, what are people doing, and how have their patterns changed, right? And last night at the CAC, we kind of dived into that question a little bit more. You're seeing the use of students riding, whether that's them ending school or going to nighttime classes, right? And you're also seeing people that have office jobs and flexibility coming to work at different parts of the day or having shorter days. And so that's all kind of showing up in our trends. But overall, I think we're seeing a very positive story in terms of ridership recovery that I am confident will continue over the time, especially as we continue to put resources where we need.
Sophia, quick question.
Can you go back? Just want to make sure I understand the slide. Thank you, by the way. So this is the commuter and express routes. This is the full system or just, okay, full system.
And this graphic's slightly old. In a very short period, another colleague of mine will be presenting to kind of 2023, but similar trends.
Short period like today, like Irene, be quiet, or short period like in a month?
I meant like in the week or so.
Okay, got it.
Yeah.
I wasn't sure if that was like
That's
a
okay.
wink, Irene, settle down, which that could still have been the case. So do you happen to have an aggregate for this? Because when you look at, this is hourly, right, in one day, so is this like 20,000?
Average days.
What's the average daily number of rides in this graph? Because this is an hourly, right? What's the aggregate of this line?
You mean like, so you have the hourly boardings on the far left?
Uh-huh.
Are you meaning like?
Well, right now, our system, we have about 140,000 per day, I
140,000.
think, on a
Okay,
weekday.
great.
If that's what you're asking.
Yes. Yeah, the reason I'm now trying to compare it to like average daily trips for like different county roads and whatnot, and looking at this, even at the lower number, are just really, really impressive numbers. Like in terms of utility, even the lower December 2022 numbers is very impressive, even if you compared it to like a busy Hennepin County road, which I don't know, we have people here that probably know the real numbers, but our busiest roads are still probably under 30,000 as our busiest. And many of our busy roads are still at 20,000 or
In the
fewer.
midst of the pandemic,
Yeah.
when people were saying nobody rides transit, there were 90,000 people in.
Yeah, so I forget that too until you, and this is hourly. And so, I mean, I think you see a graph and you just think over time, but this is just a one day. And so I wanted to highlight that for myself especially because the one on the right is a daily number and wanted to highlight the difference of the data being presented, which is really good.
Yeah,
So thanks.
and I think to if I would have put the current Commuter Express graphic against our, the scales are completely different, right? If
Right.
you're, like the two, that graph is
Doesn't
like
even make
this,
sense,
where
yeah.
Those are next to each other, but they're not, yeah.
Yeah, like to take an overall percentage, because the Commuter Express is a very small percentage of our ridership right now.
Riva, you have a
Thank you.
question?
Oh, yeah. This is related to the comparison of the forecasted ridership based on the current trend for the forecasted ridership of the Blue Line extension based on the current trend. I want to make sure that I heard that correctly. As we're seeing that the ridership recovery has been happening and that the trend is showing that the ridership has been increasing over time, if I'm hearing that correctly, did I hear you say that based on forecast, the Blue Line extension ridership patterns, because of the area that we're looking at, and the patterns should be pretty much the same in terms of the ridership trends and the consistency of ridership, or the ridership increasing?
I'm not the best person to talk about Blue Line ridership, but I think maybe the part of the question is the type of service that the Blue Line is. So frequent all-day service where people can reach multiple destinations, have different multiple kinds of trip purposes, has been one of our most resilient types of service.
Frequency, whether it be
Okay.
whatever.
Thank you for that clarification.
Okay, so a little bit about kind of the process that is Network Now. So how do we go through this process, right? How in the end do we show you something that makes sense? And the foundation gives us our foundation. So again, the policy guidance, the network performance, the public feedback. From that, having a principle, which the principles which we'll go through in the question in a second. Kind of the planning questions. And what I mean by that, the what, the meat of how you do the things that we're talking about, evaluated against the whole network to come up with plans with priorities, as well as having additional public feedback. So these are the principles from Network Now. So adapt service to changes in transit markets and travel patterns, prepare for new metro and high frequency routes, maintain the reliability of.
And by metro, we mean transitways, just to
Yes.
get the language correct.
Yep. Correct, Chair.
County metro.
Maintain the reliability of scheduled service consistently over time. And that number 3 is really both customer experience, but thinking about how we plan trips for our workforce, right? Making how we schedule service most beneficial for our operators, so they want to continue operating the routes that they are. Build on the success to grow ridership, and also then thinking about access to opportunities and focusing on advancing equity and reducing regional disparities. So how does that come into a plan? So you can take a principle such as providing access, and then you can think about how you do that. So is that new route options? Is that thinking about microtransit? Is that restructured service? And then you kind of put that into a plan, and you can measure how the network overall performs. So this graph is not from Network Now, it's from our service equity study. But you can have a question such as, what is the percentage of BIPOC or low-income individuals within a distance of frequent service? And then you can kind of take that out, and you can see how your changes overall are having an impact on the region. So where we are, we have our foundation. We're kind of in the midst of our principles and evaluation criteria, the norming and storming and figuring everything out. We'll be checking in with many of our municipal partners kind of on that process. And then in the later spring, coming out with a draft plan that shows really where we will invest our resources and how we will adapt our service to meet the needs of now. And now is now through basically 2027. And that will lead into further planning efforts, kind of network next, renamed, revamped, as we kind of bridge that gap between our longer range plans. So this is like the short range plans. My council overall is working on the long range plan, and our next step will be kind of that medium range plan. And then obviously seeking final council adoption. So if I were to impart any kind of next steps, takeaways, is this feels like things are, while we're still figuring some stuff out in terms of continuing to invest in our workforce and hiring, thinking about the adjustments that we need to make. As a staff person, this really feels like a very fun time to be working on transit, because whether if you're thinking about projects like the Blue Line, or really how we create the whole network that runs as best as it can, just seeing really positive movement right now, and just excited about the next years to come. If 2022 to 2023 was any indication of where we're going, it's I think there's a lot of wonderful things to come, and projects like these also support our overall network, and we think of them together, and bringing in tools that can really expand access. So that was a very quick overview of things. Hopefully it kind of started answering some of the questions that this group had overall of what's going on in Metro Transit land.
Any questions for Sophia? Yeah, Nick.
I think just to emphasize the point, over the next 3 years, we're gonna be adding service, and this is gonna be the plan. So it's really important this spring to kind of pay attention to this and help us influence which routes we're gonna add. You know, we will have the operators to add service. We see trends are good on that, and so this is exciting step for.
We have
more
the
service.
buses, we have the operators.
Yep.
Are we recreating the system we had in 2019? Not exactly.
Right.
It's being guided by this. So that's kind of what I take away. Mayor?
All right, you hit a spot that I've talked about in this room quite a bit, about service in Crystal and how there isn't much of it. You don't need to answer this specifically here in context for Crystal, but I will ask the question here. I'm trying to look at some of the criteria that you've talked about and try to understand, where is Crystal going to get service? Is it going to be based on regional disparities? I'm not sure on what criteria that's going to happen. So at some point in time, I'd really like to know, are we going to be a part of this now? Because this now is very important to, I would say, the whole system. We've all talked about the whole system today, how it's not just the Blue Line. And that's been one of my biggest complaints is, yeah, we really don't have service here. And I would be real interested to know more specifically, and again, not necessarily in this forum, but I would really like to know how that's going to affect Crystal. Are we going to be maintaining pretty much at the level of not much service, which I really need to know, because it really affects kind of the Blue Line station in Crystal. How can we go with what we would consider a very intense service in Crystal with nothing supporting it? And that's kind of why I'm asking the question. So thank you, Chair.
Chair, Mayor, multiple ways of answering that question. And I'll maybe kind of do an illustrative one of how we're kind of thinking about this for other projects that are nearer in queue, but also then kind of a little bit specific to Crystal. So overall, we want to make these projects as successful as they can be. And so part of why one of the principles in this is planning for our metro network is kind of that build up and planning to support things like Beeline that will open in 2025. And in this plan, the Green Line extension opens in this horizon year. And so I think that the Blue Line team has talked about like connecting bus service plans and how all of that works and how you actually do some things to connect specifically into stations or thinking of those last mile things. And in Network Now, we're kind of building up what it takes to support the Green Line when it opens. We would do the same for a Blue Line. And you know that sometimes that's local bus. There's also possibilities with microtransit when you kind of think of some of that last mile connections that you want to make, especially as you transition. Some of the thinking around microtransit is really, we've seen how it's been piloted or kind of around the region, and one of the benefits of it is where you might have a fixed route that would need to go a whole bunch of places to serve a need. Maybe that's a good place for microtransit instead of creating, a bunch of branches or something like that have not as frequent service. So thinking of that whole picture. So we are considering a lot of that in this plan, and would do similar things for the Blue Line as its implementation gets closer. And then, yes, we are tracking service levels to basically all of our communities. We've, I think, had a few chats with folks in Crystal specifically, looking at the routes that are running, what their frequencies are, and we'll be kind of evaluating that as part of the whole project. So, and just open invitation if you want more of a focused Crystal conversation. We can get your planners or policymakers and some of ours and really dive in as well. Happy to do that.
Sure, may I follow up?
Sure.
Yeah, I understand, when connecting to the station is going to be something that has been talked about with transit, and that's going to come. And that's what we've been hearing all along, that's going to come. And you talk about this program as being now. My concern is if we're going to be basing it on ridership and what Crystal ridership is now, I think I referred to it last meeting, we don't have a lot of ridership. And that's because we haven't had much transit. Transit hasn't been developed in Crystal. And if that's the marker, if that's the way we're going to measure, if we get more based on our ridership where there really isn't any, how do we use this system to justify more buses in our community, preceding the station?
I actually, Chair, I think Nick actually kind of teed up some of that, is that this is the plan, an active plan, and we're relying on our regional partners to give us feedback on that plan. And Metro Transit kind of responds in a lot of ways to city visions, right? Where is your employment? Where is your housing? What are the major destinations that you need to get to? What's kind of the wish list? We have to consider that obviously in terms of where we put resources all around. But be an active partner in this plan. We are attempting to consider all of that picture.
Yeah, I mean, this is the plan for Service Now in Crystal. This is the avenue to engage on that. And there'll be another plan as Blue Line's getting ready to open. We'll have a dedicated service. What service do we add at that point? But this, for Transit Service Now, engage on this plan, because this is the place where we're going to with our partners, decide where we add Service Now over the next couple of years. So,
Well, thank you. This really adds hope, so appreciate it.
Chair.
Go ahead.
Not to belabor the conversation, but what I did hear, based on the principles that were listed on page 28, was that there is going to be a plan to build on the success to grow ridership. So there are areas like Crystal and even Brooklyn Park where we may not have the high demand areas existing, but when we talk about access and opportunity, this is the area where we can address those.
Thank you. Go ahead.
Quick question and this may or may not be a surprise to you, but I did see in the report that you guys had it broken down by BIPOC and non-BIPOC for the engagement, and then with the survey as well, it says that it was translated, the public version was translated into Hmong, Spanish, Somali, and Vietnamese. I'd be curious to see the breakdown of that, like which languages, because I know with the blue line, like specifically for Spanish, like it was very low, and through like partnerships with pueblos and the engagement work, like that's increased. So I'm curious to see like the engagement in terms of languages, like where has that outreach been done? Like, were you making it a priority to do different languages, and if so, like how is that done, or how is that breakdown?
Yeah, so I didn't bring all of it with me. We did translate what language. How do I put this? A lot of people that spoke the other languages, we kind of worked with them. They ended up putting things in, like they worked with somebody and it was put in English, and then the Spanish survey was the version. But when we analyzed the feedback received kind of regionally, we broke it down based on demographics. So we looked at how people responded potentially differently based on race, income, kind of geographic presence, to see if kind of were response rates or things that were desired similar. And part of why we did that kind of demographic analysis was to pull out need, or to articulate that. Can't remember the date we came to council anymore, but we did give a summary to the council in the fall that has kind of the graphs with those breakdowns and kind of some narrative around the differences. Like for example, folks with lower income really emphasized the need for access in more so than just everybody, when you just don't look at aggregated trends. So we're paying a lot of attention to that, and that's part of how we will kind of use the principles to make decisions.
Thank you, Sophia. You know what? We're going to have an opportunity to keep this conversation in front of us. And that really does affect this whole transit travel shed, and as well as the rest of the metro. We have 10 minutes, and most importantly, we got to get a report on the milestones for the future year. And it's really great that we can welcome Shaheen, our deputy project director, and I see you're joined by Kathy Go. Yeah. Welcome. And you're a Hennepin County employee, but you're the deputy project director of this Blue Line. Just want to point out this partnership. Great to see you, Shaheen.
Thank you, Chair, and good afternoon, members. I will, in the interest of time, try to keep this brief and make sure that Kathy has time to present to you as well. So I will jump right to the project 2024 schedule and what it looks like. It's going to be a very busy year. One thing right off the bat, I think you've seen different versions of this in the past, and you'll notice that it looks slightly different as we have updated it to make sure that we capture more comprehensively the entire year and all the key activities that are going to be taking place this year. And I would like to bring your attention to the very top right away to the CMC key topics, and more specifically highlight March, April, and May, as in March we will be sharing and rolling out the preliminary cost information and post-COVID ridership data at the next CMC meeting. Then in April and May, members will have the floor, if you will, to report back and share any updates or on any ongoing or upcoming initiatives or accomplishments that they would like to share with the community. So that is wanted to bring that up here on this schedule as well. Then following that, in June is when we intend to publicly release the supplemental draft EIS for public commenting. The environmental team, has it has been and currently is spending quite a bit of effort and working with our local and federal agency partners in preparing that SDIS that will then be rolled out for public comments in June and July. I'm going to allow us to move ahead with the SFEIS the latter half of the year. Quickly with design, we're 30% and we're going to be undergoing reviews for our 30% design documents these next couple of months, and that will also include the 30% cost estimate that we will be reviewing. And work will continue, and another key milestone to point out here is the municipal consent hearing authorizations by Met Council and Hennepin County that will currently planned for July, which will allow us to go through that municipal consent process here in August through October. And I know we'll talk about anti-displacement, but I just highlight that that is an ongoing effort, and there is the draft framework that's currently in development that will be provided for review towards around April, which will allow us to proceed with that work as well. Quickly, just highlighting some of the grant applications that we have in place and the purposes they serve for your awareness. We've got 4 grants that have been applied for or will be applied for this year. The top 3 are the applications RN, and the first one being the US DOT Thriving Communities Regional Pilot Program, which is an anti-displacement driven grant that will allow and fund a lot of the corridor city coordination and studies that will take place between 2024 and 2026. Then the Reconnecting Communities and Neighborhood Community Planning Grant is another one that will allow us or fund a lot of the engineering analysis and work that we will be performing in 2024 and 2025 on essentially connecting North Minneapolis to the river via 21st Avenue and and extending 21st Avenue over I-94 corridor. Then the pilot program for transit-oriented development is a grant that is applied for in partnership between Met Council and the City of Minneapolis, and it is really a station area planning focused item that will allow the City of Minneapolis to plan around the stations that we have in the city. Finally, the last one here, the DOT RAISE grant that will be applied for this spring. It's not directly tied to the project, but is related, and that will be applied for by Hennepin County, which will fund the reconstruction and infrastructure improvements along West Broadway between Lindale and West River Parkway in a further out, looking at 2028 to 2033. And with that, be happy to answer any questions. Otherwise, I'll pass it on to Kathy.
Question?
One thing.
Yeah.
Yes, thanks for the update. Just on the municipal consent, I would request that you make sure you look at everybody's meetings. I mean, there's holidays in that time period with the school starting and whatnot. And should any council want to, table a vote to the next month, they should obviously have the ability to do that. So just checking out the meetings, even for the county board, there are times because of conferences and whatnot where we're only meeting, we're only able to complete full business once a month or something. So just double checking that our collective meetings line up with the schedule would be appreciated.
Thank you, absolutely.
Thanks.
Great, thanks.
Super
Go ahead,
quickly.
Ricardo.
Thank you. And thanks for the details. I don't know if this is about municipal consent, but you have the line on design on the timeline, sorry. And you have a 30% comments between March and April. Is that, what does that mean? Like a public commenting period or is that also linked to municipal consent, those 30% comments, or could you maybe?
Absolutely.
30% design, right?
Yes, Chair. That would be 30% design. Thank you. Yes. So to clarify, that 30% design review is a lot of internal review, technical review, as well as our agency partner cities that will be rolling out the plans to review.
And then comments will be produced at that 30% that will then influence what do the 30%, where do they live? Or I'm not understanding that portion there. So 30% design, and then you see 30% comments, right? Those you're saying is generated by the city partners in regards to 30%, and then you're gonna use that input to put forward the design coordination?
Well, design coordination is going to be an ongoing activity.
Okay.
And those 30% comments that we receive will help inform then the next set of plans that will be produced. Well, for one, as we roll into municipal consent process, and then the 60% design plans that will be prepared. So we want to make sure that we have our stakeholders review, make sure from a technical perspective, the documents adequately address what we're trying to design here and construct.
So maybe just another, it'll be great if like our communities are able to access the 30% of the comments so we can be ahead of the whatever's happening next. And we can also learn where are the corridor cities standing as it pertains to the design, because sometimes they don't, like, it's tough for us to do that compilation of comments on our own. So if you can proactively help us understand some of these things, that'll be great. So thank you.
Got it, Ricardo. Riva?
Yeah, that's what I was going to ask about, and that's the clarification. Because if I were to just look at this document without hearing an explanation, I'd be wondering where is the 70% of the comments? Or does this 30% have more leverage than the 70% of comments prior? So if there could be some clarity on that, or a way to indicate that on the timeline, that would be helpful, I think.
Chair and members, thank you for those comments. We'll be sure to incorporate that and clarify.
This one page says a lot, and it's hard to get it all on there. I get it. Yeah, thank you. Kathy?
Yes, thank you. I just have a couple slides here. Just want to show the progress that we're making on the next steps that were identified in the recommendations report from the anti-displacement work group. And on this slide, you'll see that number 5 was checked off. We have developed a corridor-wide anti-displacement policy agenda for 2024 legislative session, and have now started the conversation with our anti-displacement work group, met with that group a week ago, and we'll be continuing the conversation about funding. And what we're looking for this year is not all of the money that we're looking for. Obviously, we will continue that effort as we advance and understand where the opportunities are. And just a brief update here, we did meet with our partners in the corridor to, again, finalize that one-page takeaway for the legislative process. We talked a little bit about the Thriving Communities Program grant, understanding that a award decision comes shortly here, late spring, so that's good. We are advancing a work plan that Shaheen kind of overviewed in the schedule. The framework, we're looking at the recommendations report really to be the framework of this work, and now we'll advance toward a work plan that uses that framework to advance all of the activities that we will be entertaining and looking into to advance the outcomes. And then we also talked a little bit about our agency programs, policies, and resources. We talked a bit about a corridor tour and planning of such with our policymakers to advance understanding of the Blue Line extension, the route, and gain excitement over it. And then I did also mention that we did reconvene the anti-displacement work group, and we have scheduled meetings every 2 weeks. And we'll meet as we have things to talk about, but just wanted to get that on people's calendars in advance.
Thank you, Kathy, and thank you, everybody. I know we're over time, but any last clarifying questions, anybody? All right.
We're always asking questions that difficult. I just do want to say the anti-displacement folks on the project team with the county, they're really showing up, you know, like whenever we need something, we're calling them, we're asking questions, and we're happy to see the movement. And I do want to invite all of the corridors cities also not to wait for this to come to your desk, but what can you proactively do? And we have been visiting several cities. We hope to have a meeting with you So I just wanted to say that because that's really what we're here for. So yeah, anyways, thank you.
Thanks, Ricardo. Thanks, Shaheen. Thanks, Kathy. Thank you, everybody, for coming to this meeting. A lot of information, a lot of momentum. March 14th, we'll be meeting again to look at some cost and ridership data and what's next. So, see you then. This meeting's adjourned.